Thank you very much to all friends in the audience as well as the organizer for inviting me. I told my friends that there is a risk to invite a university professor who's probably going to summarize my 64 hours of course on sustainable development in 40 minutes, or maybe the 600 articles. I could read all of them for you. But so my apologies if I put too many slides, but don't mind if we are going fast, because I will give all these slides to the organizers. Therefore, you will have time to read them with calm in your office or with your friends. So the subject that we are analyzing are the challenges that business leaders now are confronting in the social and environmental field. My presentation is divided in three major parts: the understanding what's going on, which we call the cardinal call it seeing, judging or studying what's going on, new vision of sustainability, and the third part would be on new good practices that might be emerging of moderation and mercy. What fundamentally development is about, there are many different definitions around the world, but it is very clear, at least the consensus on the fact that it is a change. And properly, the change should be based on economic, scientific, and technical improvement, and not only, of course, on ideologies. Development is also about progress, is also about improving the situation that we find and going towards a goal. So it is very important to define such a goal. One of the most common confessions that my colleagues who are involved in development work is that it is a big mess. It is extremely complex. It's probably the most complex science on earth. And a lot of people like to pass the problem to from one area to another. It is an education problem. It is a public health problem. It is a financial problem. It is a poverty issue. It is an entrepreneur issue. So everybody, therefore, has to identify its own identity and its own priority. This one priority which is proposed by the Pope, the problem of the poor as a major challenge, as a major risk for not only for the planet, but also for the profit. That means inequality is making sustainable development impossible if it is not properly attacked and adjusted. A lot of people give up and say, hey, it's too complex, I cannot do any major difference, even my government cannot do it. We need 10 more government, we need regional government, we need the United Nations. No. Problem solution and the responsibility of problems are no magics. They're all man-made, and they can be and they must be unmade. So men can really make a difference. Of course, development is growth, and there is no doubt about it. My background is scientific, and I know that something is already there when it is not evident. Something is already in the children. As Dr. Virachai told us, you can recognize smart children even in the school. I started in what he mentioned, level 1 in scientific group. So I was expected to be among the smart one. Then I moved to business. And then from business, I moved to international politics. So I'm going down to level 3. But it's always about growth. Development is about growth, but intelligent growth, smart growth. Progress must be there, but must be there in a smart way. And when it is not smart, in medicine, excessive and uncontrolled growth is called cancer. And cancer is not development, it's killing. let us see how we have seen the development in the past 100 years. There's been an impressive growth and impressive pressure on the planet, some of it really beyond what the planet could take. So the planet probably could deflate because of this situation. I think we should probably change the battery. This thing has a low battery. The scientists at international level have identified 3 of 9 planetary boundaries which are now at a high risk. And these are the ones identified in the red zone here, which are the major concern in environmental area. So there is a special responsibility by smart people to look into this zone, which is a zone of high risk where possibly the environment could be a major problem. But there is also a major shift from poverty reduction to inclusive growth, and the world is changing dramatically its interpretation of all these issues. The world has now invented the 8 Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2015, and a lot of scholars at global level are now putting the elimination of poverty as the top priority for our generation. One of the gurus, Jeffrey Sachs, using an analogy with medicine, explains that every country is a different kind of sickness of the sustainable development. But the common formula of a common monitoring and evaluation, professional ethics, and specifically tailored prescriptions could be applied to all countries of the world. There are some growth paradigms which are around and should be abolished. These growth paradigms, unsustainable, should be eliminated as soon as possible. We have already heard about some of them, like government corruption, disparities among gender, ethnicity, and caste, diseases, lack of infrastructure and transportation, communication, simply not giving access to the market for the poor people, instability at political level, protectionism, and geographic barriers. A colleague of mine at the AIT, at the Asian Institute of Technology, has also invented these other BRICS, not the countries which are not members of the G7, but the other BRICS, which is the bad BRICS: bureaucracy, regulations, interventionism, corruption, sectarianism. These are the wrong BRICS to build sustainability. So it is now time for a paradigm shift. We are now stealing the future, and we are selling it now and calling it GNP. To make these issues easier to remember for my children and for my student, I invented this formula, so-called the G7, 7 Gs. First issue, governance, which is one of those which are major failure around the world. The profession which has had a major failure around the world is about governance. Governance at enterprise level, governance at government level. Second, globalization, growth model. Ginny, we'll analyze all of them one by one. Globalization. Too much introverted leadership, thinking on your own nation instead of thinking of the world, and rising vulnerabilities caused by globalization, and regional governance which is not effective enough and is not providing the appropriate leadership for this kind of challenge. So it's not really globalization. It is semi-globalization. We talk about globalization, but we are not actually doing. We are not really opening the market. Even in kind of common market, the European Union, ASEAN, still the market is not really open. So Professor Pankaj Ghemawat wrote this book, World 3.0, saying that we don't need less globalization, we need more globalization. We need a real open world where everything becomes transparent and equal. Capitalism is in crisis. It's the second big crisis. The first crisis was, of course, communism, total failure of Marxism around the world. And another ism is now in crisis, capitalism, focusing too much on growing the capital and not growing the people. development is about people. It's not growing capital. The people develop, not democracy, not state, not institutions, not banks. People develop. So we have to put more focus on people. There is a challenge also in the growth model, not giving enough attention to people and creating dramatic inequality at international level. More focus on the money made on money, on capital, on finance, and too little focus on labor and work and distribution of wealth among the small enterprises. Gini index, which is an indicator of equality among countries, is worsening, and we have seen a lot of development aid at international level where the poor or rich countries, people who pay taxes, have helped the poor countries, but the only help really went to the rich of the poor countries. The Gini index is now worsening in many parts of the world, and in some parts of the world is reaching level never seen before. By 2016, the richest 1% of the world will own more than all of the rest of the people of the world, increasing inequality. Extreme inequality is not just a moral wrong. We know that it hampers economic growth and it threatens the private sector bottom line. So this is capital, which is killing capital. It's a suicide of capitalism because it's eliminating the market itself. In our century, economic challenge, as defined by Thomas Piketty, a French economist who became a bestseller in the United States, he said that never before in the past centuries we had so much growth on return on capital and comparatively little growth on the return on the people. Another challenge is, of course, the climate change and global warming. We are breaking the planetary boundaries, as I said before. Some of these breaking is unchecked, so it is not yet under control. And finally, the sixth and the seventh challenge is gender and generational injustice. I am a grandfather. I don't want to be part of that generation who is stealing the future to my grandkids. We are the first generation on Earth which has the possibility of eliminating the possibility of life in 2 generations after ours. So the first generation of grandfathers or grandparents who can eliminate the possibility of survival of the grandkids. So how to judge after having seen all of this? We need a new vision. And the new vision, one of the most credible one, is brought by the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. These are business people. These are private sector people who have invented this vision. Of course, I don't have time to go in all the details, but it is based on 4 major areas. Profit, they call it economy. People, governance, I call it power, to make another P. And then, of course, environment, energy, water, and the ecological system, planet. So 4 Ps: people, profit, power, and planet. Not as competitor one of the others. Not like in the past, that one model was living in the Soviet Union, the other one in the Western world, and they built a wall between them. And in many parts of the world, still the people see the government as an enemy, as a competitor. No, a collaboration between these 4 sections are necessary. And I list here a number of CEOs. 96% of CEOs believe that sustainability issue will be critical to the future success of their business. 96%. Isn't it a majority? 96% believe that sustainability should be fully integrated into the strategy of their own business. GlaxoSmithKline, one of the best pharmaceutical companies in the world. Sustainability drives market growth and success. So sustainability is not the ethic of business, is not a good rule of business, is the essential component, the core business of business is being good business. when somebody is saying that the corporate social responsibility is not for business, well, business of business is having good business. So having it sustainable is also a responsibility of CEOs. 91% of CEOs reported that their company will employ new technology to address sustainability issues over the next 5 years. So we have a solution around these things. 88% of CEOs believe that they should be integrating sustainability through their own supply chain. What will be the global drivers of consumption? What will make the business grow? A world population of 9 billion people is expected by 2050. Low-income consumers represent a market of 5 trillion people, 5 trillion US dollars. A growing culture of consumerism among higher income groups will drive this consumption. So businesses who are committed to sustainability, those who are part of the United Nations Global Compact, suggest that achieving greater environmental and social sustainability takes time, effort, and a sincere leadership commitment. It requires a new kind of force, a new kind of leadership. People really strong to make this believable, credible, and transform it into action. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development also insists on the fact that, for example, 83% of the economic crisis is elevated the role of sustainability and ethics in building trust in business. People now trust business more than government. People trust business more than church. People trust business more than the trade union. That builds an enormous responsibility for business, because business have to do what in the past was done by the church or by the education or by the trade union. This is now becoming a responsibility of business. Two key issues among all these things are education and climate change. The CEOs have identified education, as 72% of them, as the most important development issue for the future success of the business. So business should get involved in education. Business should enter in the school. Business should enter in the university and teach real facts of life and develop not only smart people, smart engineer or smart scientist, but also smart citizen, smart leaders. And business has to take this responsibility over. And then, of course, leading with the climate change. CEOs cited several barriers to achieving their sustainability goals, including the complexity of all this, the competing strategic priorities, and the lack of recognition in the financial market. Sometimes when business behave, the financial market does not recognize it immediately. So we need an holistic, inclusive, robust, how end-to-end sustainable system can drive business value. Plenty of companies have taken significant steps toward a more sustainable world, and they are successful. We should recognize those companies, making them example in the society, not only an award a year, but also providing them as a good practice which can be replicated by others. Now, are we on the right track? Is this judging of the problem good enough to find our correct orientation? Well, there is a good momentum, but there are two key gaps. First, the execution gap. We know what we should do, but we are not doing enough of it. Second, the transformation gap. And this is the kind of challenge. We know what is going to happen, what will happen to population if we don't do this kind of change, but we are not doing it fast enough. In the past, the change could expect from one generation to the other. Now we have to do change inside the same generation. And that is much more difficult, because that means that we have to change ourselves, not waiting for our children to change. And some of the change is happening in Asia. Most of the challenge of the world is in Asia. So extra responsibility for Asian companies and Asian business, because that is where the majority of the problem has to be confronted now. Some of the problem will be related to specific areas. The major one is food. Of course, the World Expo in Milan, starting the 1st of May, will focus on food. I'm very glad that Thailand has a very nice pavilion there to present all the efforts of Thailand in this sustainability of food, which is strongly connected to the livelihood, energy, housing, water, and all the rest. And this is a market of $5 trillion. Patterns of consumption will change radically, and also in that we have to be able to govern to control this significant change. Let me move to good practices of moderation and mercy. Moderation and mercy, I use these two terms because they're very close one to the other. Moderation is number one condition of His Majesty the King of Thailand, sufficiency economy. In Thailand, everybody understands what it means because the Thai word is very clear. Falang sometimes do not understand exactly what sufficiency means because probably the translation is not fully correct. I use the word moderation because it's much closer to what also the Catholic Church thinks, which put in the mercy at the center of every business. That means appropriate way of sharing resources, sharing knowledge, and sharing priorities. It is now something preached by the Catholic Church, by the Pope alone, or is it just a proposal by His Majesty the King of Thailand, one proposal among 200 different countries? No. This is now a consensus for a total reset, which is proposed by the World Bank, by the World Economic Forum, by the United Nations, by the network of thousands of NGOs in the Beyond 2015 network, by the G20. All of these groups of the world are now focusing on these areas, moderation and sustainability, make the future possible. What were the old fundamentals of sustainable development? We know that sustainable development in the past was based on three fundamental pillars: human rights, security, and pro-poor policies. Now it is much more difficult. Now it's a matter of human dignity. The new Sustainable Development Goals proposed for 2015 have the title of human dignity. They will be approved in October 2015 at the General Assembly of the United Nations. Let us see briefly what are they about. Goal 1, end poverty in less than 15 years by 2030. By 2015, the goal was cut half of the poverty. By 2030, get rid of the poverty. Really something which will change the story, the history of humankind. No more poor by 2030. Second, end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition. There are 17 of them, so I go a bit fast, but just for you to list all of them. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Big challenge in some parts of the world, including some Asian part of the world, not particularly in Thailand, which is a very good example of good gender equity, but other parts of Asia have a big problem in this area. Goal 6, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Goal 7, I think the battery is low here. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable and modern energy for all. Goal 8, promote sustainable, inclusive and sustainable economic growth. So making the economic growth, the business growth successful with decent work for all. Goal 9, build a resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. Reduce inequality within and among countries. Goal 11, make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Goal 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Goal 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. Goal 14, conserve a sustainable planet, in particular the use of ocean, seas, marine resources. Goal 15, protect, restore, and promote the sustainable use of ecosystems, sustainably manage the forest, combat the desertification and the degradation of all resources. Goal 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development in order to provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And finally, Goal 17, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalization of the global partnership. These 17 goals are part of 116 consensus area which have been developed by the General Assembly of the United Nations together with academia, NGOs, private sector, and it is listed in these 11 clusters, and I don't wish to repeat all of them, but they're grouped in 11 clusters to make action on it more possible for those who have to work on it. Everything is in it. Why I wish to list it? Because I hear too many experts of business or government who focus only on one area. Security is important. You even listen to it in G7. Tough on crime. Once Tony Blair said, tough on crime is the solution of everything. No. Security is important. Human rights is important. Growth of business is important. Good governance is important. You cannot build only in one area. So all the area of sustainable development agenda are equally important. And the protagonists will always be the communities. Development is done in the livelihood, not in the bank, not in the government. It's done by the people. A special effort of global governance, that means governing the global issues like water, energy, peace. We are doing too little in that area. We are, of course, consuming our planet too much, and we continue like that, like it was growing in 2000 to 2015, we will need 2.3 Earth of resources for our population. Since we cannot reduce the population, of course, we have to use better the resources. And we have to reinvent how the energy is produced, how it is used, and how it could be reused in a way that it is sustainable. We can do that. We can do that through private sector, non-governmental cooperation in a kind of new kind of coalition structures, new partnerships which are built from all the protagonists who believe to be responsible in the same way. In the past, they were divided. They could become instead a partnership. My opinion, I have also my personal opinion, what is most missing is a more serious, intellectually honest sense of urgency. I think we have a global agreement that there is this need of sustainability, but we don't think that it is for today, and we don't think that it is for tomorrow. We think that it is probably for next generation. Instead, everything is interconnected. In ASEAN in particular, there is a strong community of interconnectedness. There is no other larger diversity in the world. This common market in ASEAN is being built between 5 different religions within 10 different cultures. And ASEAN is becoming one of the largest markets in the world. And the sense of urgency which is being built, sometimes if people are in a hurry, they do the mistake of the Rubik Cube. You know what is the mistake of the Rubik Cube? You try to fix one face. So at least we fix one face. Let us fix one face. Security. Let us fix education. Let us fix health. No. There is no way to end the Rubik Cube because all the cubes are connected. So the only way to fix it is to fix all the 6 parts at the same time, together. If you finish one phase per time, then you have to re-elaborate this again. So the 3 major components, people, profit, and planet, have to work together. And in Asia, we have the largest population on Earth. Asia is more than the rest of the world together. The largest land and the largest economies. China, India, and ASEAN together have a bigger economy than Europe and bigger economy than the United States. So it is the biggest sustainability challenge on Earth. That's why they have to cooperate. Industries, business, profit, people, they have to cooperate in a way that was never seen before. And I think that there is also a shift in the global marketplace moving from the 20th century on your left towards the 21st century on your right with more cohesive and inclusive approach for more communities being responsible, not only institutions, but people, communities to become responsible. You know that tantum quantum is a principle by St. Augustine, and they've developed here the 7 P's of tantum quantum, a moderate growth, the little bit that is necessary of cooperation between people and profit to protect the planet, cooperation to move from poverty to prosperity, and to move into a good collaboration between public goods and power. A paradigm shift at all levels. In the past, we had these 6 different entities: donations, taxations or fees, social enterprise, socially responsible business, CSR, corporate and social responsibility, and strictly seeks profit. Now, all of this is becoming closer to the center, and we have more sustainability of philanthropy. Aid by itself does not change the situation. It is much more a responsibility of business, well-invested money that makes all of this sustainable. All of this is also known as social market economy, which is the choice of Germany. The moderate economy, which was presented for the first time by His Majesty the King of Thailand. Compassionate capitalism, the core round table, ethical capitalism, moral capitalism, conscious capitalism, share economy, all of these different names for this kind of so-called new economy, where business can do social good. Business can work for common good. I work in one of these businesses in Thailand, the Mayfar Luang Foundation. We are one of the largest social business in Thailand. We produce profit for the good of people. Mohammed Yunus thinks that this is the future of the business, where the profit is sought, people want profit, is not an enemy of profit, in order to provide services. And where business is the solution of everything. Whenever I see a problem, I immediately go and create a company. That is what I did all my life. And he won a Nobel Prize on this principle to make business even for the people selling food in the street. He proposed the 7 principles of social business. That means that there is that the return on investment is reinvested in the same business to produce more common good. And when investment amount is paid back, the company profit stays with the company for expansion and improvement. It is environmentally conscious. A workforce get market wage with better working condition and do it with joy. This is very important. Happiness, being able to create happiness. It was the princess mother of Thailand, the mother of the king of Thailand. She is the base of my own company. Let us take a little less and help people to help themselves. It is the Mefa Luang Foundation kind of business. Other models of social business have been developed in other parts of Asia. These are some of them. In conclusion, I think that the future model will no longer be that pyramid that we saw in the past. That is a poster created by industrial worker. It was a group of entrepreneurs in the United States. And they saw capitalism at that time, 2 centuries ago, built on a pyramid. At the bottom, workers, farmers, then consumers, then the military, then the religious leaders, then the rulers, the governors, the government, and on top of everything, the prophet. That was 2 centuries ago. The future model, I think, is more like this kind of four wings, where there are 2 wings which are goals, people and planet, and 2 wings which are the tools, profit and power. For this kind of insect to fly, all the 4 wings have to move in the right way. And this is the most efficient kind of flying in the world. It can land in any area. They can cross a continent, travel for thousands and thousands of kilometers, because the 4 wings collaborate and you cannot get rid of one. If you get rid of one, it will not fly. So you really need this kind of approach of strong cooperation among people, planet, profit, and power. Urgent action is needed. Inclusive growth requires extroverted leadership and true cooperation of all of us. Globalization is much better if we do it really. If we really open up our borders, if we behave like one only human race, humankind, cooperate not only for the good of our nation, but also for the good of all the other nations. Complex system will provide the foundation. We need much better governance at international level. The United Nations has to become part of the solution instead of being, how it is now, part of the problem. Business cannot do it alone, but can lead. And the journey of moderation and mercy begin now. Thank you very much. For those of you who wish to find more information, there is some information on the website. You'll receive all of these on the website of the conference. Thank you very much for inviting me, for your attention.